Greetings my fellow Minecrafters and welcome to my first video tutorial. This is the XP grinder that I previewed in my first video. I thought I would bring you the tutorial. So firstly, certain things to note. You'll notice on the map that my Y coordinate is 40. Now whatever your Y coordinate is, essentially you want to build up at least 130 blocks from that Y position. As you'll see here, I think I take it up to about the 200 mark. I also did that on my survival world as well. You can only build up to a height of 256 blocks within the game, but this mob spawner doesn't require that much. It only requires about 30 blocks from this base here. Now you want to make this area a reasonable size. You want to put chests up here. You will also want to put your enchantment table up here, because with the XP you'll gain, you will be doing a lot of enchanting. So give yourself a reasonable space. Also remember to light this area very well, because as soon as you actually start adding the main part of the spawner, you'll notice this area becomes very dark very quickly, and the last thing you want is mobs destroying you. Right, let's get on with the build. Let's pick our spot. Right, here we are. So first thing to do is dig out this little floor area. Now you don't actually have to do this bit. I just prefer this because this is essentially where we're going to be standing when it actually comes to doing the killing. And you'll notice with this actual bit that I put a half block in just in front of me as well. So essentially that means that we're always going to be standing at eye line with the mob's feet in order to give them a good slaying. Now this first bit that I'm putting in is actually the flush system and also the base of where we're going to be doing the killing. So there's the half blocks I was referring to, and we have a switch on the left which will be for our flush, and a switch on the right which will be for our trapdoors. The trapdoors are not essential, they just come from an earlier design when mobs were able to spawn or glitch, should I say, through walls. If too many of them were in close proximity, it could cause a little bit of a problem with creepers if you were killing and too many were spawning into the area you were in. So because we've put the half block in place, it means that any water I put to the left won't float out and into the area where I'm doing the killing. The flush system is essentially to pull any of the drops that come from the mobs directly towards my position. Because some of them will drop just slightly out of that reach where they're automatically pulled towards you. So this method ensures that you'll gain maximum from the drops that come down. There are probably a few of you that will see a better way of doing this, but this is the most efficient way that I found, and it keeps it nice and simple. The redstone that I put in for the trapdoors, I've tried to keep this as simple as possible as well. There are a lot more advanced ways of doing it. You can find many videos on YouTube. So again, it all comes down to your personal preference. I just found for this video I would keep it as simple as possible, just so people could see exactly what I was doing and the reason that I was doing it. As some of you know as well, the redstone can be a little bit temperamental, so it does come down to a little bit of trial and error when it comes to putting these bits in. But that's the flush system in place. Give it a quick test, make sure it works. Again, sometimes it will, sometimes you'll have moments where it won't work and you'll just have to remove a block, replace it, add the redstone again, and it will work again. So I add the water in at the back, and that is the flush system active. So that will bring any of the drops towards this position. Another quick test. Okay, so the next step will be to add the trapdoor system. Again, you do not have to add the trapdoor system, it just comes from an earlier design. On to the next step. Okay, so it's time to put the redstone in for the trapdoors. As you'll notice, I've actually put one extra block on top of those half blocks at the front, and I'm now extending these side bits out in order to place the trapdoor pistons. you don't have to put these in place. As I mentioned before, it just comes back to an earlier design, but it does give you a bit more control over the mobs actually falling down into the kill area, and you get to look up and actually see just how many mobs are actually collecting within the area and the amount of XP you're about to gain, which is a nice thing. If you decide to leave this trapdoor section out, just essentially continue the center build at the same height. So all you'd really be doing is just replacing the pistons with just an extra normal block. That way you're ensuring that the height is going to be consistent, because essentially this mob spawner is based on forcing the mobs to spawn where you want them to. So if they're too far away, they'll instantly despawn. If they're too close, they won't spawn. So I needed to try and find that balance where the mobs would constantly spawn and would constantly be active. I found this was the best method. Again, there may be a few of you that feel that there are better ways of doing this. I did try and keep the redstone placement as simple as possible. For this part, you'll notice that I'm not actually the fastest builder, that I was a lot of thought involved while trying to record the clip and make sure that I did get it right. Most of the time, redstone placement can be fine, but occasionally there are moments where something won't do what it's supposed to, and you have to do a little bit of trial and error in order to sort the problem out. At this point, I knew that I would have to extend the signal in order to reach these last two pistons. I just wasn't sure where, so I gave it a wee test. And have a look, and a little bit of an extension there, and then that should be fine. Another test. Yep, that's fine. And we'll test this side. And as I was saying earlier, there's now a problem with this side. Now, the first thing I decided to do was cut off the initial main power source. That way I'll know if it's coming from, the signal's coming from there that's causing the pistons to lock. So note, both pistons are still locked. So I'll try removing this one. And that didn't work either. Pistons are still locked. Now for some reason these pistons are now still locked. They're getting a power source from that one block. So I simply removed it, replaced it, and added the redstone again. The only small difference that I did actually make to this part was the block that I'm about to place here. I shifted it up one slightly just to try and ensure that there wasn't a signal coming from there as well. And that is now your flush system and your trapdoor system in place. That works. That works. Next step, we move on to the main tunnel and we will work on the flush system, the second flush system. Right then, so essentially that's now our killing zone built. We've got our trapdoors in place, got our flush system in place, and we are now building the first part of the drop leading on to the what will be the first flush system. I say it's a flush system. It's essentially a method of ensuring that whatever mobs drop down will automatically be pushed into this drop area. I tried after much experimentation to find a mob spawner where essentially the mobs would only have to walk a small distance and they would essentially be forced to drop down into this area. Now as you saw, I built up about another 3 blocks, and now what I'm doing is I extend from the center square, I extend out 9 blocks and then up 1. So essentially you've got 8 blocks, And I'll do the same again here, as you'll see. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the top block. The reason that I do this is because I will add water in on these areas. Now, water can only flow a maximum of 8 blocks. So it means that the water will essentially stop at the edge of the center square and won't flow into the center square. So any mobs that drop down into this position will automatically be forced to fall into this next position, or into the killing zone. Depending on how you construct this, when I usually build it in survival, I have a small tunnel that I build up from the very center, from the kill zone, and I fill these bits with water, and then I simply block them with dirt, which I remove on my way back down. It does come down to a preference really as to when you want to fill them with water. I do actually fill them later on after I've filled in the main bulk of the water, as you'll see. So essentially you should end up with a cross that looks like that. You don't have to do 4 wide on each side, but you do have to do it at least on the 2 opposite sides. So you'll notice I've got 2 wide opposite sides and 4 wide opposite sides. This is to make sure that the water always pushes into the center. You'll also notice for this bit, when I come to add the next stage, that I step out 1. So essentially I've now made the hole in the center an extra 1 wide. So as you can probably see, when I add the water in from the sides, it will push to that bit, and then anything that falls down into this edge here will automatically get pushed down. So we continue to build this up a little bit. And you should end up with something that resembles this. And then all you need to do is put the flush system, the cactus system in.